Так, привет всем. Сегодня у нас в эфире наш друг и евангелист нашего IT-сообщества Hasan и наш специальный гость из Америки, сеньор-разработчик Хасан, который успел уже поработать в таких компаниях, как Amazon, Microsoft и в данный момент работает в Google. У нас в первом части будут вопросы и ответы на разные темы, где в нем будут участвовать я и Шер, а на втором непосредственно ждем ваши вопросы. Данный стрим будет на английском языке. Если у вас будет вопрос на русском, на таджикском, мы постараемся прочитать и переводить Хасану и взять его вопросы. Ну, давайте начнем. Welcome to Hasan.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Привет всем. Сегодня у нас в эфире наш друг и евангелист нашего IT-сообщества Hasan.
I think there's some technical problem.
Some technical problem. Share, please. Сегодня у нас в эфире наш друг и евангелист нашего IT-сообщества Hasan. Наш специальный гость из Америки, сеньор-разработчик Мухаммад. If you open, успел уже поработать в таких компаниях.
I think, sorry guys, my video was for some reason.
Yeah, please start, share.
Yeah. First of all, welcome Hasan to our stream. I'm very happy that you're here and sharing some knowledge with IT community of Tajikistan. And first of all, welcome, and we can go ahead and get started. So the first question we have is, can you give us a brief background of what you do, who you are, what's your current role, and what project you're working on right now?
All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Currently I'm working in Google as a senior software engineer in Chrome OS core team. I've recently joined. It's been 4 months. I'm currently maintaining different components within Chrome OS for updating the systems that take dump reports and for analyzing the errors that happen in the operating system when, for example, the Android apps crash in it and stuff like that. So that's what I'm working on right now. Before that, I was in Amazon for about more than 2.5 years, almost 2.5 years. I was working in I worked in AWS, and I worked on systems that served catalog data to the Amazon retail website. And before that, I was in Microsoft. I've worked in Microsoft Azure, and I worked in Microsoft Office. Yeah, I'm in the industry since 2008. I've worked in different companies.
So around 12 years in the industry.
Yep.
I have some question. Can you tell us about your daily routine as Google engineer? How much time do you spend coding, meeting, etc.?
Right. So since I'm fairly new, and first month was mostly ramping up, but after that, I have, like I mentioned, I got different projects to work on, and meetings are fairly rare, at least in my team, in my organization. And most of the time is spent in either investigating, learning, because operating system is a broad area, and if you have to modify something, you have to learn a lot of concepts before you're able to make any changes. So most of the time is actually spent on learning, reading the code, understanding what's going on, and then there's time spent in writing design documents. Actually, writing code is a very small part of it. Most of it is actually debugging and learning.
And
design.
how large are these code bases you're talking about?
So Chrome OS, I don't know how big it is. It's in GBs, the code. It's open source, so you can look it up.
I see. Is it on GitHub, right? Open source?
No,
Google
it's
has.
Google has its own website. It's hosted on Google servers. It's called Get It. So you can look it up on source, or I think it's source googlesource.com or something.
Awesome. So the question I had was, so how's the work and life balance at Google? And I mean, and as a Muslim, you pray like 5 times a day. Where do you pray during work? And what are some of the activities do you do after work as well?
Right. So in Google, work-life balance is great. Like, so it's a cutthroat culture. We get to decide our own timelines and do our own estimates, especially in the team that I'm working in. As far as religious services are concerned, where everybody is allowed to take breaks. Like this, you don't have to ask for permission. There is a meditation room, so people coordinate. Like, for example, if you want to pray with somebody, you can coordinate a time, and 2 or 3 people can pray together, or different people pray at their own convenience by going to the prayer room. And after office hours, it's basically normal life. I have a wife and kids, so I come back, I spend some time with them, and yeah, it's pretty much, there's few hours left after office hours, so some book readings, some family time, and then the day was over.
And how different it has been since this coronavirus started?
Yeah, so with coronavirus, we are working from home, so we're pretty much home all day. And in terms of routine, I work from 9 to 5, same as before. And after work hours is still the same, because when I'm working, I'm not available to my family. There's still interaction, but I don't spend as much time. So the routine hasn't changed much.
Uh-huh. Can you tell us about how you develop a product at Google SAT? What technologies and approaches are you using for your software development process?
So Google does not mandate any process itself. So it's up to individual teams how they want to work. For example, in my team, typically if you're it either you're working on a bug fix or you're working on a feature. So if it's a bug fix, then you already have all the details in the bug, or you may ask some questions with somebody who's reported it. You'll have to probably do some investigation. There is some attached, the logs attached, so you'll figure out what's going on, and then you'll eventually fix it by sending a code review. And then if your code review gets approved, it automatically goes through a build pipeline, gets tested, and everything is good, then eventually gets deployed. But if it's a feature, then you'll have to first write a design document. And when you write design document, you find some key people who have to approve it, whether it's privacy, security, some senior members from your team. So once you have the approval on the design document, then you go ahead and implement it. Depends on how big it is, and either you're working on it alone or other people are working with you. And eventually, once everything is done, then for each change, there people send code reviews. There's a very strong guidelines about how the code quality, and there's a process of having specific people to review your code for different purposes. And then once your code is again reviewed and submitted, it goes through build pipeline and eventually gets deployed. In terms of the development process, it's really up to individual teams. uh, we don't follow any formal development process as such in my team. So it's not typical Scrum or Kanban. We have once a week meeting where we discuss what are the things that we'll be working on, and what are the things that we worked on last week, and it keeps changing based on whatever the priorities are.
And how big is the teams you're talking about right now?
So under individual manager, you'll have typically somewhere around 5 to 10 people, but then you have multiple teams reporting to one skip manager. So, and that's where the whole team structure. For example, my immediate team is like around 5, 6 people,
Hmm.
but then I work with other teams that report to my skip manager. All of them are working on Chrome OS. They're working on different parts of Chrome OS.
Awesome.
Share, please, your answer. Your question.
Okay, so the next question is, you also worked at Microsoft and Amazon. So can you tell us about some projects you worked on there, and what did you enjoy the most about working at those companies?
Yeah, in Amazon, I was first in the offer catalog team. That team is responsible for services that went the offer data to the website. So if you go to the details page and you look at what are the different offers, there's a buy box, which is when you click the buy button, there's one merchant that you're purchasing the item from, but usually you have multiple merchants offering that item. So all of that data, what are all the offers are, that data comes from a website, from a service that I was working on along with my team members. And also there's another service that vends catalog data, which is basically what are the details about the item itself. Those details also come from multiple merchants. And so I was part of that team. It was offer and catalog data team. And after that, I worked in that team for about a year, and then I moved to another team that was that manages services and tools for investigating quality issues in the quality and safety issues in the products listed on Amazon. So these were the two teams that I worked in Amazon. In Microsoft, I worked in Microsoft Office, which is Outlook Desktop and Outlook Web. And I implemented the feature that allows your messages to have actionable forms in them. So you can, for example, if you have to sign up or if you have to make a payment, then you don't have to click a link or just go to another web page. Within the email, a user interface shows up, and you can submit the data and goes back to some server. So that was the feature that I implemented. Or I also worked on the store feature in Outlook, where you can install apps and integration with third-party systems. Before that, I was working in Azure API management, which is a proxy for APIs, and to add throttling and um, authentication to APIs and transformation and whatnot. Before that, I was in Azure Mobile Services, which was another team, which was backend as a service, which allows you to write very little code and be able to save data in the database, or do some basic transformation or manipulation of data before it's saved. So that was what I was working on. Yeah.
And what did you enjoy the most working at these tech companies?
All these three companies have their own pros and cons. So in Microsoft, I learned a lot. I've moved around 3 teams, and I've enjoyed working with people. I've worked in large scale systems. Azure was interesting. Exchange, Microsoft Office was interesting. There's a lot of collaboration, emphasis on collaboration in Microsoft. Your promotion, your review depends on how much you contribute to success of others, and how much you take advantage of others to do your own work. And then in Amazon, it's a bit fast paced, and throughput is much higher in Amazon, especially on the Amazon retail website. So the challenges there are technical challenges are higher, and so you get to learn a lot on how to work on high throughput systems. And in Google as well, it's just I'm working completely different domain. So that's operating system right now, and there is a lot of emphasis on code quality and engineering principles. So that's another good aspect here. A lot of highly skilled people to learn from.
Did you have any experience working with operating systems before joining Google?
No, this is my first time.
I see.
And that's one of the good things about Google, is that they're willing to experiment, and they're not looking for people who already have experience in certain area. They give you the freedom to choose what you want to work on, even if you don't have any experience in that area.
And how do you go about learning certain topic? Let's say you are working on some feature on operating systems. Do you just dive in, or do you first study some books or online materials?
They have a lot of internal material that we can read. and so there are articles and there's video recordings, talks, etc. So we get to learn from that, and then you can read code and talk to people.
Awesome. And so the next question was, like you said, you moved from one company to another. So what are some advantages of moving from one company to another compared to working at one company for a long time? So what was the main reason for you, for example, to move from one company to another?
The biggest learning is these companies have different cultures, different principles that they operate on. So once you go from one company to other company, you grow as an engineer in terms of your perspective of different ways of looking at things, different things that they value. For example, Amazon, there's a lot of emphasis on leadership principles which they have, and they exercise them in everything they do, whether you're making design decisions and whatnot. So your thinking is a lot centered around those principles. And then the way they operate is different. And then you have, uh, you know, like I said, Microsoft is very collaborative, and you get to in Microsoft, most of my work was with Microsoft tools. So when I went to Amazon, it's completely the pipeline is different, the tools are different, everything is different for me. So there's learning opportunity as well. It's like, whenever you're exposed to areas that you've not explored before. It's exercise of your brain. You get to exercise your brain muscles into learning all these new things. You feel like you don't know anything, so it's a good exercise for your brain. You don't get comfortable. When you move to a different country, you're working with completely different people with different cultures, so you have you learn to adapt to different situations and pick up new tools and technologies. And it's, as an engineer, you have to do that. Otherwise, it's hard to survive in the industry if you're not going to be flexible and keep learning new things. So it's a good way to test your waters.
And how long did it take you to get comfortable working in their code base? Let's say you join Amazon and then there's a huge code base. And how long did you normally take?
Yeah. So in Amazon, it can take anywhere from 6 months to 1 year for you to get comfortable, because there's so much, everything is different. The frameworks are different, the tools, and especially if you're coming from a Microsoft background. So in Microsoft, I was working on all Microsoft tools, Microsoft build infrastructure and whatnot. So, and when I came to Amazon, it was completely open source, and they have a lot of internal libraries, internal concepts, and everything. These are things that you won't even find on the internet, because they're company's internal tools and frameworks. So it takes a lot of time for you to get comfortable. You can always learn on the spot to get the job done. Yeah.
Next question. How do you avoid burnout to maintain a health and successful career?
So it varies from which stage of career you are. I think one thing is that you won't burn out naturally if you're super interested in what you're doing. And for example, if you love playing games, you'll see teenagers playing games all night, right? Or if somebody likes watching movies, they'll be watching movies for hours. They don't burn out because they're enjoying the process. So earlier in my career, I remember, even before getting into college, I would spend a good chunk of night just coding things up, working on my side projects, and that helped me a lot in my initial gave me a boost in learning. And then once you start having family and you have responsibilities, then you have to structure your learning, right? So uh, you have two ways. One is that uh, either you choose different projects or different teams or different companies based on the learning opportunity there. So that's what I've been doing. If you look at my resume, I've moved around a lot. That's one way I've ensured that the time that I have at my work, I'm not doing the same thing for next few years. So at least if I worked on one area or one kind of application 1 year, I try to change and work on something else. So that's my learning. A lot of it happens at work. Before and this is in recent years, now that I have family and responsibilities. After work hours, I'll probably read some book, or I'm contributing to some open source project. So if I have to learn something, the learning has outside of working hours has slowed down because I have other interests as well. If in terms of as a Muslim, especially if you have to spend time learning your deen as well. So depends on which stage of career you are. But the thing is, in the earlier stages when you're not married, you don't have other responsibilities, and you really love your job, you love what you're doing, you can spend more time, you can build extra projects, and that way you learn a lot and you don't burn out. But after that, you have to do structured learning. You have to do one thing at a time.
Thank you for your answer. My next question, can you briefly summarize the process of getting a job at companies such as Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and what are restrictions do those companies have been applying for a job?
Okay. So there are a couple of things. One is that your own competency, right? You have to work on yourself. There are two things. One is being successful as an engineer, and one is clearing interview. These are two separate things. For clearing interview, you have to prepare for the interviews. There's a lot of in all three companies. They're basically, if you're fresh graduate, one thing that they are going to evaluate you for is data structures and algorithms. So you have to read books, you have to do mock interviews, you have to solve problems on lead code, or whatever other websites there are. And then that's your preparation for interview. You have to be able to solve problems within 30-35 minutes. That's the preparation part. And once you get into the company, for survival, you have to be a competent engineer, you have to be willing to learn. So that for that, you have to build yourself up. You have to learn to pick up new things, read code, and you can do that already by working on your side projects or contributing to other third-party projects, open source projects. So you build yourself up as an engineer, and before that, all of this, how do you get your resume, uh, being getting any attention? So for that, you have to do two things. One is make sure your resume is well written, and there's some tips posted by uh, Google already on it's called Grow on Google. You can go ahead and look at the video on how to have a good resume. So you write your resume, you submit your resume online on their job sites. When you drop your resume there, there's no guarantee that somebody's going to call you back. So next thing you can do is look for a recruiter or hiring manager on LinkedIn, or if you're on teamblind.com, sometimes you'll have some hiring managers or recruiters posting that I have a job in my team, and if you're interested, you can apply. So you reach out to these people and you submit your resume. If you know somebody who's already working in it, then they can refer you, and they can vouch for you that I know this person, he has good skills and whatnot, and then that will guarantee that somebody at least can look at your resume. And if your resume then matches the job requirements and you have the required expertise, then they'll hopefully call you and for an interview. So there are three things. One is that preparing for interview itself, building yourself as an engineer, and then applying to the jobs and reaching out to people so that somebody looks at your resume, making a lot of dua, because risk is in hands of Allah. You can do a lot of preparation and still not get an opportunity if it's not written for you. So
Mhm.
yeah.
And for you, like, how long did it take you to prepare for these interviews, especially when you were like in Netherlands and or back in your home country, and then you had a full-time job, right? And how did you
Yeah.
manage a full-time job and then preparing at the same time?
So interestingly, I haven't prepared for interviews in Pakistan. Uh, I was back in those days. I was very active, building my side projects, doing. I had recently graduated, and I was much more active. So my brain muscles were more active. So and the interviews were also not that difficult as they are here. Even though I interviewed in Pakistan with Amazon, I did not interview with other companies. But back then I wasn't even aware that you need to prepare for interviews, or there's basically I don't even know what kind of interviews they're going to be. So yeah, I haven't prepared for interviews in Pakistan. Even when I went to Netherlands, I did not prepare for that interview, but I was able to clear it because those companies uh, in Pakistan as well as the in Netherlands, the hiring criteria is not that strict. The questions are not that difficult. If you have been writing code and you've been writing different kinds of stuff, see if you're if we are building an application and only saving data in database and building this websites, then obviously our brain is not going to be trained that much as if you're solving difficult problems. Like for example, if you are writing a tool to, let's say, do distributed messaging, right? So then you have different problems to solve, so your brain muscles will be exercised more. But once I when even when I interviewed with the Microsoft, I did not prepare much. I looked up quickly some bit manipulation, and I don't even remember if I did actually read code. There was no lead code back then. So I I didn't do a lot of preparation for Microsoft, but for even for Amazon, I did probably did a little bit. It's for Google mainly that I had to prepare. For Google, I did a lot of mock interviews. I read books, and I read Cracking the Coding Interview, Elements of Programming, and I've solved I think very few problems on lead code. But another thing I did was just learn the theory and just build programs on my own to just exercise, quickly. For example, writing depth first search or breadth first search and things like that, and merge sort, quick sort. So those things I did. I was spending for Google, at least I spent a lot of time preparing. In last 1 month before my interview, I would do multiple mock interviews a day, at least one or two, and on weekends I'll probably do three and four. And yeah, I've done a lot of mock interviews, and I've studied the theory. That's how I prepared for Google, at least
Do you use
one
a
month.
website for a mock interview?
Yeah, I've used interviewing.io and Pramp.
For mock interviews, right?
Yeah.
And so, based on that, a lot of software engineers, like in Tajikistan, for example, they would like to work at Google, like in United States. Is the process different for people who are outside of the country compared to people who are in the United States? The interview process, and is
The
it harder?
interview is same wherever you are going to be.
Mhm.
The only thing that can matter is your location can affect how much traction you get. So when I was in Pakistan, I applied to Microsoft, Google, Amazon, but only Amazon reached back to me.
Mhm.
And when I was in Netherlands, I interviewed. I was able to get interview with Google. I was able to get it with Amazon and Microsoft. And when I came to US, I didn't even have to apply. These companies reached out to me: Facebook, Apple, Oracle. Um, so it depends on which country you are, and that affects your chances of getting interviewed, because there is visa process. So recruiters basically uh, are careful in evaluating candidates that will be difficult to bring in, and will require visa sponsorship, because H1 visa granted once a year.
Mhm.
So other than that, the interview itself is same regardless. The questions, the difficulty, all of that is going to be same. One thing that helped me in Microsoft, for example, all my interviews were online. So I did not have to go in person because they did not have an office there. And my previously my visa was rejected for Amazon when they had called me on site. So that was one thing that they accommodated me for. In terms of, if I had been in the US, then I would have to go into the office to interview there. And when obviously when you're in a physical space, then you have the whiteboard and you can draw stuff. So that's one thing that can affect whether you have a local office or not, and if they're willing to do your interviews online. So these days, for example, everybody is working from home, so most of the interviews are already online. So that's one thing that can, uh, if anything, it might be easier these days because you don't have to travel to their office to interview.
Mhm.
You don't have to go on site.
So you could try like apply, let's say, to Google Office in Ireland or Canada compared to Google Office in Mountain View, California, right? That would be easier, I assume, visa wise.
Yeah. Personally, I've faced not much difficulty in getting my job or visa processed by when I was moving to Netherlands. But in when I was coming to US first, for example, my on-site, when I applied for visa for on-site, they rejected it. Then they applied for my H-1B. That took a few months. It was already close to the time when they're supposed to be applying. So after a few months, I got my approval, but still it took some time before I could actually come to US. And even when I came here, there's some immigration process to go through. So going to Europe was easier than coming to US.
I see.
Mhm. Thank you. What would you recommend it to college and high school students in the Tajikistan interested in the field of teach? What should they pay attention to if they want to success in this field?
Students should first of all concentrate on their studies, do all their projects themselves, take their studies seriously, and this is a great opportunity to learn. Don't rely on your teacher. That's not a good excuse to say my teacher didn't teach me this or he didn't explain it well. As an engineer, to be a successful engineer, anyway, we have to uh, build the muscle or the skill of learning things on our own. Teacher's job is to introduce you to concepts, whether it's data structures, whether it's something related to operating system or whatever that is that you're learning. He'll tell you the concepts, give you a broad overview. You have the book, you can read the book yourself. Go ahead and use internet. Internet is available, there's a lot of information. So learn and do your projects yourself. You don't have to make a huge group of, in project universities you get opportunity to do projects with team members. It's a But the bigger the team is, the smaller your contribution is. So if you're working, two people or three people is enough, and make sure that you do your part. And if you have spare time, which you should have, like, students should have spare time, and they should be building their own side projects as they're studying. So by the time they graduate, they are already uh, well-formed developers. They have something built already, something published on, let's say, open GitHub, some open source contributions. You have something maybe in the App Store. You should you should consider yourself engineer as you enter the university, as opposed to graduating and then beginning your career. So early in your career, before you have a lot of family responsibilities, use that extra time to learn. Stay focused. Don't learn 10 different things at a time. Learn one thing at a time. If you're learning to build web apps, then build a web app completely. And if you're learning how to build mobile apps, then build a mobile app and publish it to App Store. Support it. People will report problems, solve them, go through the whole process. It will make you a more well-formed engineer. And then you can prepare for interviews and go from there.
Awesome. And so, what are some things you learned while working, which you were not taught during school, for example?
There's a lot of things. For example, in school, we are not taught, at least, I mean, it depends on every school's teaching material and the criteria. But for example, at least I wasn't taught how to write, manageable code, what the clean code principles are. This we learn the theory of, how the process is, but what actually happens when you're working on a real project, what are different phases, how requirement gathering has to be done, how writing tests, having deploying these. There's a disconnect between industry and academia, so you don't get to learn about aspects that go into supporting a service that's already live. So which means having a proper deployment methodology, testing, and supporting it, how to deal with bugs, and how to learn on your own, for example, is also a skill. Just being able to read code and understand things, dig into code to just figure out what's going on. Debugging skills, you won't learn debugging in university unless you're dealing with code that's already written or have issues have been used has been in use for a while. So in the industry, you have to work on things that have been written by other people, and sometimes they're not even in the company anymore. So these are the things that you get to learn on your job. But you don't. This is it's not necessary that you only learn it on job. Now that you know this is something that you will be doing, you can already start doing them by, for example, contributing to the projects that other people have already written on internet and open source. You can have read books. So some books that I did not even pay attention to or read were, for example, how do you maintain legacy software, or how do you maintain systems. There are books written. Even Google has a book on systems engineering and testing. So these kind of things you typically learn on job.
So, based on that, in your opinion, do you think going to college for a computer science degree is necessary, or can it be just self-studied?
It's helpful, but it's not necessary. Like for like I said, a teacher's job is to expose you to different concept, and especially if you don't know what you should be studying, university helps you, gives you a structured program on how to teach you things. But at the end of the day, a lot of learning can be done on your own, or if you have a mentor who is guiding you. So even people who don't have a degree in computer science can get into this field, and a lot of people already do get into this field. Many of the successful companies are built by people who don't even have a university degree. They were dropouts, right? So you can learn a lot of it on your own. You just need to know what the structure should be. You need to, for software developers, having understanding of software development process, software design principles, knowing language, knowing data structures and algorithms. These are the basic things that you should know before you're able to uh, get into this field. But other than that, a lot of things that we learn in university are just there to um, build us intellectually, and give us the attitude of learning and doing the research, which you can, if you work on it, you can learn it on your own as well.
So, do you feel like we need a mentor if you go this route? And do
Yeah,
you
you
have a
should.
mentor?
Yeah. Sorry, did I have a mentor?
Um, do we need a mentor if you go this route? And the second question is, did you have a mentor
Okay.
at the beginning?
Yeah. So if you're not in an engineering degree or computer science degree, and or if you don't have a degree, it's good idea to have somebody as a mentor who can guide you what you should be learning. So they can tell you, for example, where you should go look for looking up stuff, which books to read, maybe which topics to explore, and what is the next step. And that's what a mentor will help you. And this is what university is doing anyway, by giving you the structured program. They're basically building you up. So if you have somebody who can guide you, that helps. Otherwise, you can have MIT has online courses that you can attend as well. There's structured programs online that you can follow. uh, that's another option. And personally, for me, I did not have a mentor specifically, but I did take knowledge and learning from different people. For example, when I was in school, just got interested in programming. I bought a book and I just read that book every night. I used to build programs, and then I had fortunately, my home tuition teacher who was uh, uh, tutoring me for my schoolwork, which had nothing to do computer science, but he was himself studying computer science. And I told him I've started to learn programming, and I'm building programs. So he would just tell me, okay, show me the program, and maybe write a program like this next time when I come. So he would check my programs and give me ideas on what kind of programs to write. And then after that, I did an internship before even going to the university. So I did an internship in a tech company, and there my boss obviously gave me work that required me to research and learn. So I did not have a mentor outside of work other than my tuition teacher, who initially helped me, you know, by telling me different kinds of programs that I'll be exploring or writing. He did not teach me programming or anything, but yeah.
Yeah. So I also like when I started like my software engineer career in January, and I noticed like the time goes very fast, and once you start working on some project, it's just the time's going crazy. So my question is, so like, what are some advice do you give to balance this work and also a spiritual life?
Yeah, so we have to know that our purpose of existence is not to become a Google software engineer or Microsoft software engineer. Our purpose of existence should be to worship Allah, and we have to, at the bare minimum, do our 5 daily prayers, because success is in hands of Allah, risk is in hands of Allah. Once we know that, we know where the risk is coming from. So we have to make sure that we concentrate on that part, and uh, keep learning our religion as well, and ask Allah to make it easy. Allah puts barakah in our time, and we have to cut down any additional things that may be taking away. So for example, praying 5 times a day does not take a lot of effort. Learning something about the religion, we can, if we have a structured learning program, like, if you have a class once a week, uh, that is sufficient. If you're reading a book, that is sufficient. There's so much out there, both in terms of tech and as in terms of religion as well, that if you start exploring random things, you will never uh, you'll never learn something uh, in depth, and it will not build you up. So structured learning, both in your technical growth as well as in religion, is helpful. Instead of spending time on reading different topics, or whether it's religion or tech, follow one topic, follow one book, follow one paradigm, learn it. And once you've built something there in terms of tech, for example, if you build an application, so you could do 2 things at a time. You're building an application, your open source project, you uh, uh, allocate some time that you are going to spend on it every day, or maybe once a week, however you want to do it. And then you have specific time allocated for your deen also, like after fajr, if you want to pray, read quran with translation, or read tafsir, or you're going to have a class once a week. So having this discipline and structured learning helps you keep things in check, and continue to build yourself up in both the areas. But if you keep learning random things, then you'll know it will fill you up, just like uh, when you're eating junk food, it fills you up, but it's not healthy for you. So it does not, exploring random topics does not build you up, whether it's tech or religion.
That's a great advice. Thank you, Hasan.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our question: what are your plans going forward in your career?
Yeah, anytime I'm asked this question in an interview, at least my answer is, my plan is to just become a better engineer, and I don't make long-term plans. I don't have any vision of after 2 years or 3 years I'm going to be a principal engineer, or uh, I don't know, having my own company. I don't have anything like that in my mind. My goal is to continue to learn, keep myself in shape. By if I am working on something for a while, and I see myself not learning something new, and I'm getting comfortable, then I either switch my job, I change my team, or I change my project, so that I become uncomfortable again, and I just want to continue learning, and that's my goal.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That has been great, Hasan. A lot of useful information for our youth in Tajikistan. And right now we can open up for Q&A from people who are currently watching this stream.
Okay. How much time do you have for yourself? Yeah, so like I said, for myself, at the end of the day, if you love what you're doing, that's your own time. Like if we take our learning as a burden, and if we think of it as not our own time, then it's a problem. So I haven't for me, like after work hours, it's all my time. I whatever I'm doing for myself, or if I'm doing it for my family, I'm doing it for my family because I want to do it. So we should have to have the desire to do things that we are doing, and that won't feel as a burden. So any time after work is my own time until I sleep, whether it's doing ibadah, eating with the family, doing whatever family activities. It's all my time from 6 o'clock all the way until I sleep. Depends on what season it is. These days it takes until 11 p.m. Um, yeah, it's all my time. My education background, I have done bachelor's in computer science from bachelor's in software engineering from Bahria University in Pakistan. Mentors. So for me, mentors, like I said, my mentor happened to be my tutor was already studying computer science. So he uh, became my mentor. I told him what I'm doing, and he guided me by telling me what to learn. That's why if you have somebody in your family or friends or somebody that you're already connected to, that's one way to start learning from them. If you don't have anybody in the family, one thing that I've done is participated online when I started doing my uh, online projects and coding before I went into the university. I was back in those days. I don't use anymore. I was on MIRC. I was using IRC. I was on channels or ASP.NET, C Sharp, and whatnot. And those channels, I spoke to other programmers. That's another community where you can learn from people. And if you have, that's how I got my internship also. The person who granted me internship became a friend through just IRC. So that's these days you have online communities, you have Stack Exchange, you have Stack Overflow, you have different software development communities that you can participate in. These days you have workshops, seminars, and conferences that you can attend, connect with people, talk to people, and build connections and participate in active hackathons. I've attended hackathons. I've met people through hackathons as well. So explore those areas where you're going to meet like-minded people, and try to find opportunities to work with other people, even if you're a student. So you can contribute in some way, and through that relationship you start learning. Once you go into a company, when your career starts, then you can find a mentor in your work, any senior engineer who's just helpful and was willing to talk to you outside of work and or even non-work related topics. Then that can be another way of finding mentor. I have a mentor in Google, for example. As soon after I joined, I just looked up there. In big companies you have internal portals to find mentors, so that's another option.
We have some question in Facebook live stream too. Now I show there. You can answer.
Hi there. I hope you're doing well. I have a question. How to get a backend internship in USA after graduating from the university? So what I've seen, I'm not an expert on immigration, and my answers can't be taken as authoritative. But what I've seen is people who get internship here are usually local students who are already studying here. So people come here for studies and then they get internship in companies locally. I haven't seen an international student come for internship. So if that's possible or not, I am not aware of it. You can look it up. Otherwise, you can find local companies that you can intern with. I don't know how to get an internship in a big company while you're not in the country. What programming languages are more usable at Google? So Google, a lot of code is in Java and C++. There is other languages are also there. Go is their internal language, so they have code in Go and Python and whatnot, but there's a lot of Java and C++.
Surush Kholov, thank you for your time. This is
My pleasure.
I think we don't have other questions. Thank you for your time. Thank you for very powerful information. I think helpful in our community for development in future. Share, please.
Yes, it's been great. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. It's a lot of good information for our people, for people who want to work at this big tech companies like that. And you're a great motivator for students back home. Thank you very much. And
it has been a pleasure to come here and speak to you guys. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you very much. And if you have some more questions, we'll just send it to you. And
sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good luck.
So when next stream, imroz Хасан Хан in Google компания Google озер кор мекунам. Як информацияи беҳтарин барои мо гуфтан. Амба мо ҳаракат мекунем ин видеое ягон волонтер бошанд мо навистон, чтоб сабтайтл англиси агар донитон агар ин видеои мо шумо фисоним, чтоб пойнаш ба сабтайтл навистон. Ман шумо 200 сом метиҳам нархи коратон. Агар ясем ин кора кунед, барои он ки як информацияи зиёд хеле информацияи беҳтарина гуфтан барои ҳамба зиёди одамон мисол англиси намедонанд, ҳамба беҳтарин мешуд агар ки ин видеое пойнаш ба сабтайтл тамон капои на русском или на таджикском вай кунан буд, тарҷима кунан буд ягон волонтер беҳтарин мешуд. Эркин нако шумо чӣ фикр доред?
Албатта фикри нағз аст. Ман дастгирӣ мекунам. Худохоҳ кӯшиш мекунем ки забони англисию сони тагаш ба субтитли русски баромада бошад. Ба фикрам имрӯзина камтар иштирок кардани саволу ҷавоб ба фикрам надонистани забон аст. Нишон дод ки то кай дараҷае мо метавонем худро намоиш кунем ва иштирок кунем. Албатта забони англиси ин хеле зарурият аст, чунки барои барномасоз надонистани англиси ба фикрам пешба рафтанаш душвор мешавад. Амба мо тавсия медодем ки ба бачаҳо рекомендатсия чтобы ки англиси бештар омӯзану бештар нафаҳмана иштирок намоянд, чунки вақте ки майна гӯш мекунад бисёртар гӯш кардан худ ба худ одат мекунад. ҳамчун кӯдак ки мактаба нарафта забонро меомӯзад, шахсан мо вақте бештар худро дар муҳити англиси забон худаш масраф кунад, вақташ бештар бо нағз мешавад. Раҳмат.
Ҳасан мисол хеле ки дидед Ҳасан забони англисияш беҳтарин буд. Мана мисол любой компания мисол интервью кунад, забони англиски интервью мекунад, амба ҳаракат кунед забони англисиро сиро агар ки мин ёд гиред, барои он ки сфераи мин программистиве хеле муҳим аст забони англиси донистан.
Суруш дӯстамо бо якта савол вобастаам. Ҳасан рафтан, хай фикр мекунам шер бар ин савол ҷавоб дода метавонам.
Community online ҳозир чӣ хеле ки Ҳасан гуфт IRC channel ҳай, например IRC channel хонед Google ба чӣ хеле ки join кардна онҷа community ёфта мешавад. IRC channel ҳар як проект ба IRC channel бошад. IRC именно худтон Google ка ёвед. Обычно сони бо community девелоперои через Team Blind, сайти Team Blind ҳай онҷа ёфта мешавад. Зиёди одамо онҷа метавонед referral гуфтаги гапай referral ин вақте ки мисол корба мехоҳед ягон шиностон дар ягон компания кор мекунад, метавонад резюмеи шумои гифта дар ҳамон компания referral кунад. Ва шумо интервью гирифтан осонтар мешавад. Ҳама метавонед ҳамон сайти Team Blind ҳамҷаам девелоперо зиёд ҳамҷаанд разработчикон метавонед ҳамҷа пост кунед ки шумо referral дар кор компанияи Google или дар ҳамҷаам community IRC Team Blind ишо агар open source ба contribute кунед метавонед ҳамон GitHub даронда ягон проекти open source ёвед. Вақте ки ҳамба contribute мекунед ҳамҷа уже автоматически уже одамо ки девелопер разработчико ки гап мезанед ҳамба community ҳоя ҳаминҷа ёфтан мумкин Team Blind, IRC или GitHub Amba harakat kunit to be active in this sphere.
به فکرم امروز نازگذشت به فکرم وقتمایم با آخر استفاده است و رحمت شیر که دعوت کردی دوستی خود رو از گوگل امید میکنم آینده با دوستان پیدا میشن که همیشه сообществону гурӯҳамои дастгирӣ мекунану ба пеш бо ҳам мебарем.
Ки дӯстои ман биён англисӣ мешавад фақат.
Хай англисӣ албатта ба мо лозим аст. Мо русӣ, англисӣ, тоҷикӣ кӯшиш мекунем. Мақсади мо он аст ки бо ёрдами ҳамин гурӯҳ, бо ёрдами ҳамин ҳамҷоягӣ ба пеш равем. Албатта ин як нишондодӣ аст ки забони донистани англисӣ ин хатмӣ аст. бе донистани забони англисӣ мо наметавонем ба ҷаҳон ҳамкорӣ карда бошем.
Мисол агар бенид агар дар Амрико мисол аз Индия зиёд ин разработчико зиёд или аз Покистон чӣ хеле ки Ҳасани дидед барои чӣ? Барои он ки забони англисӣ якум медонад. Дуюм ваяшам ин ки дар ин давлатҳо сфераи IT хеле тараққӣ кардааст. Ба ҳаракат кунем Тоҷикистонам забони англисӣ ёд гирем. Сони мисол сфераи IT пеш барем, чтоб дар ҳамин Амрико, дар ҳамаи давлатҳо, дар компанияҳои бақувват мисол тоҷико зиёд шаванд. Мисол ҳозир ман намедонам ред када тоҷик дар Google или ягон компания дар ҳамин Сан-Франсиско зиндагӣ мекунам, зиёди мисол тоҷик программиста реально намедонам. Ба ҳаракат кунем оянда, чтоб моям зиёд шавем. Мисол зиёди одамо Америка хондан мебиён, ақа учёбава аҳамият наметиҳанд. Ҳамина ман мегуфта ки чтоб учёбатон нахонед, чорнорабочий накунед ва чорнорабочий кунед. Мисол $10 в час метиҳад, например, корои мисол ресторан, официанта махе коро, лекин оянда ҳаракат кунед дарстона хонда махе корои офис, программистия, махе чизои гиред. Барои он ки корои чорнорабочий вес ҳаёт када намегардид ку мисол ба беҳтарин агар хондан ба аҳамиятид вақте ки Америка мебид. Вай ба хе берун аз вай хе кор када вақти зиёда кор ба сарф накунед. Ҳаракат кунед мисол дарсотуна вақташ бихонда, ҳаракат кунед офисни корҳо кор бидароед, чтоб моям зиёд шавем как амин дигар натсияҳо дар ҳамин сфера.
фикрои беҳтарин шуд. Албатта ҳамин пай мебарим, хондагӣ чизе мешам мегӯну вақти худро ба ҳамин корҳои дига сарф мекунам. ҳозир пул кор кунам мегӯну стратегически ояндаашро фикр намекунам. Масалан вақт нишон дода истодааст ки ту интихоби дуруст карда ҳамин бештар ба илмат машғул будӣ. Имрӯз ту тавонистӣ ба компанияе ки дар Амрико пешбарафта истодааст дар ҳамун ҷо бо забони барномасозӣ корбар кунем. Ин беҳтарин аст. даъвати моям ҳамин аст. дуруст гапҳо гуфта гузашта шуд. умед мекунам ҳама гапҳое ки имрӯз гуфта гузаштаосем оянда нишон медиҳад. дар ҳамин хатм мекунем. ба фикрам раҳмат барои иштирок, раҳмат барои даъват. дӯстаро даъват карда ки дар ин ҷо гуфтугузор шуд. албатта барои мо вақте ки ин фикрро карда будем, умед накарда будем ки аллакай дар стримҳои мо специалистҳои монанди Ҳасанду монанди ту баромад мекунанду ва гарна дигарҳо. мо бисёр шод ҳастем ва миннатдорем.
боз як дӯстам аз Facebook, Pinterest кор кардагӣ, Facebook ва Pinterest, ваям Android инженер, ваям мехоҳад як стрими моҳо иштирок кунад. Ман гуфтам ва розӣ шуд. Ба ҳаракат мекунем, боз стрим кунем барои шумо, чтоб шоя мотивация када, чтоб мотивация пайдо кунед, ҳамин сфера зиёд шавад аз Тоҷикистон молодёж, разработчиков. Раҳмати калон шумоям эркинакол барои ташкили.
Насиб, good luck, my friend.
Thank you very much.